So here we go. So we're going to look at right triangles today. And you already know, I'm sure, that a right triangle has to have a right angle, a 90-degree angle, right? There was a mathematician named Pythagorean who looked at right triangles. I'm not really sure why, but he looked at right triangles, worked with them, and he found out that for any right triangle, there was always a relationship between the sides of the right triangle, called the Pythagorean theorem. So you know that this side opposite of the right angle is called the hypotenuse. Hypotenuse, kind of like hippopotamus, hypotenuse. And the other two sides, those are called the legs. Those two don't really matter as much. But what he found was the hypotenuse is always the longest side of the triangle. In a right triangle, the one opposite of the right angle, the hypotenuse, is always the longest side. What he also found was if you square this side and square this side and add them together, it's always equal to the square of the hypotenuse. That's what we call the Pythagorean theorem. Usually you see it as a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And we can use that formula to find the third side of a triangle. So if we're supposed to find the hypotenuse, I have a and b. A is 3, so 3 squared. B is 4 equals c squared. And you should be able to work that out then, right? What's 3 squared? 9. What's 4 squared?
16.
And
25.
if you add those two together,
25.
you get 25 equals c squared. Now, we don't want to know what c squared is. We want to know what c is.
So the square root of
Yes,
25.
the inverse operation. Well, you know, like adding and subtracting are inverse operations. Multiplying and dividing are inverse operations.
Pay attention.
Square and square root are inverse. So if you want to get rid of the square, you need to take the square root of both sides. So the square and the square root will cancel, and you get c equals 5.
Let's put the 2.
Oh, right, thank you. So you get c equals 5. And by the way, if you check your answer, you should get c as the longest side. It should be longer than 3 and 4, is it?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So we at least know our answer's in the right ballpark. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter. You don't always have to be looking for the hypotenuse. Over here, you're looking for one of the legs. You can still use the Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. So my a is 5. Remember, the one that's opposite of the right angle is always the hypotenuse, which is the c, right? So a is 5. I don't know what b is, and c is 13, right? Work that out, bless you. What's 5 squared?
25.
25 plus b squared equals 13 squared is 169. By the way, you probably are going to need a calculator today. Some of these I even need a calculator for. So remember, if we're trying to figure out what B is right here,
Subtract.
yeah, you have to subtract the 25, right, Sean? So minus 25 minus 25. This one is a little bit different than over there when we were trying to find C. What do we get? B squared equals?
144.
Oh, how nice. And then how do you get rid of the square again?
Square root.
Square root, square root. Square root, square root. And you get B equals?
12.
Does that answer make sense? Over here, what side's got to be the longest? The hypotenuse. So we know we have to get an answer smaller than 13, right? And we did, so we should be okay. Does that make sense? Do you have questions so far? One thing, we were lucky up here, the examples that were in the book, comes out to be a whole number. Comes out to be a whole number. There are going to be some that won't come out to be a whole number. You might, for instance, get a square root of 41. You can, it's just that it won't be a whole number, right? So what I'd like you to do, everybody on their calculator, square root of 41. What is it?
It's approximately
6.7?
no 6.403144423.
So 6.40.
Yeah.
I believe the directions in the book say, give me 2 decimal places. For the ones that don't come out even and you have to use your calculator, give me 2 decimal places. Some of the kids in the last class were writing out the whole thing. All 8 digits.
Wow.
They get an A+ for effort.
Oh, I'm giving that.
All right, I got one more thing. One more thing. Remember, Pythagoras says that the Pythagorean theorem works for every single right triangle, right?
No.
What do you mean, no?
No.
Well, you'll have to take that up with him.
He's dead.
Right.
So he'll just have to die.
So you can make it your life's work to try to prove the Pythagorean theorem for now. For now, though, we'll have to try to prove it wrong, I mean. For now, we're going to assume it's correct. So every single right triangle follows the Pythagorean theorem. Well, here I want to know, could 8, 15, and 17 be sides of a right triangle? Could that be a right triangle?
Wait.
Yes.
8 plus
Wait. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. If it's a right triangle, this thing has to work. Which one is the C?
17.
She says 17. Is that right? Yes. Remember, the C always has to be the longest side. So 17 squared. The other 2 doesn't really matter where you put them. You're going to add them together. 2 plus 3, 3 plus 2, you get the same thing. So those 2 don't matter as much. And look up here. We want to know, is that equal? Is it equal? What is 8 squared?
64.
What is 15 squared? I think it's 225. And we want to know, is that equal to, is this 289?
Yeah.
If you add those up, what do you get?
Not 289. Not 289.
Really?
Really? That's not correct.
It is correct.
Lorana, what's 5 and 4?
9.
What's 6 and 2?
8.
And then I got a 2. 289. So, Does this triangle follow the Pythagorean theorem? Does it work? Yes. You know what that means? Yes, it is a right triangle. Woohoo! It is a right triangle. How about this one? A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Which one is the C? 7? Because it's the longest, it's got to be the C. 3 squared, 4 squared, and we want to know, is that equal? What's 3 squared? 4 squared. Is that equal to 49? Almost. It's 25. Is that equal to 49? No. Is it a right triangle? No. No, 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 no. It's not a right triangle. It's a big no. It's a big, big no. Anybody with questions?
No.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
We have to do 16 of these?
Oh, you gotta do 58 of them.
Wow.
I'm gonna change it.
Pretty easy, aren't
They are pretty easy. That's what the last class was saying. But
That's what Olivia told me they were.
nobody with questions?
they?
So right here,
I'm gonna punch you.
I feel threatened.
Not you.
She's gonna bully you?
I am going to bully you if you don't
Guess
stop
what we got
talking
to
to
do
me like
last
that.
night?
What did you get to do?
We got to go cut grass for my great aunt.
Pick up what?
We got to cut grass for my great
Oh,
aunt.
cut grass.
Nothing.
Oh.